In June 1942, the Pacific War was still in its most dangerous early phase for the United States. Only 6 months earlier, Japan had struck Pearl Harbor, crippling much of the American battleship fleet and shocking the world. Japanese forces had then swept across the Pacific and Southeast Asia with astonishing speed, capturing territory and seeming almost unstoppable. But one crucial part of the U.S. Pacific Fleet had survived Pearl Harbor: its aircraft carriers. Those carriers would soon become the center of a battle fought not by battleship gunlines, but by aircraft launched from floating airfields. Near a small speck of land called Midway Atoll, about 1,300 miles northwest of Oahu, the balance of power in the Pacific was about to shift. Midway itself was tiny, but its location made it strategically important. It sat far enough from Hawaii to serve as an advanced outpost, yet close enough that losing it could threaten the Hawaiian Islands and the American defensive line across the Central Pacific. For Japan, capturing Midway promised several advantages. It could extend Japan's defensive perimeter, give its commanders a forward base, and potentially draw the U.S. Navy into a decisive battle. This mattered because Japanese leaders understood that America had immense industrial power. If the war dragged on, the United States could build ships, planes, and trained crews at a rate Japan would struggle to match. Japan wanted a crushing blow before that American strength fully mobilized. The architect of the Japanese plan was Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, commander of the combined fleet. Yamamoto had helped plan Pearl Harbor, but he knew the attack had failed to destroy the American carriers. At Midway, he intended to fix that mistake. His operation was designed to lure the U.S. Pacific Fleet out from Pearl Harbor, especially its carriers, and destroy them in open battle. At the same time, Japan launched a related operation in the Aleutian Islands to the north, adding complexity and spreading attention across a vast ocean. The plan depended on precision, timing, and coordination across widely separated forces. On paper, it was ambitious. In practice, that ambition made it fragile. At the spearhead of the Midway attack was the Kido Butte, Japan's elite carrier strike force, commanded by Vice Admiral Chuchi Nagumo. This force had carried out the attack on Pearl Harbor and remained one of the most powerful naval air groups in the world. Its carriers, including Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, carried experienced pilots and well-drilled aircrews. These men were not easily replaceable. Japan's naval aviation system produced highly skilled pilots, but it did so slowly. That meant the Kido Butte was not just a collection of ships. It was a concentration of hard-won experience, training, and operational confidence. Losing it would mean losing something Japan could not quickly rebuild. What Yamamoto did not know was that the Americans had already uncovered much of his plan. U.S. Navy codebreakers had been working to read Japanese communications, and by the spring of 1942 they had identified Midway as the likely target. This intelligence breakthrough changed everything. Instead of being surprised, Admiral Chester Nimitz, commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, could prepare an ambush of his own. He sent carrier forces under Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher toward Midway before the Japanese arrived. The American carriers Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown would be waiting in the general battle area. Yorktown's presence was especially remarkable, because it had been damaged at the Battle of the Coral Sea only a month earlier and repaired with extraordinary speed. On June 4, 1942, Japanese aircraft launched their first strikes against Midway. Their goal was to soften the island's defenses and prepare for invasion. The attack damaged facilities but did not neutralize Midway's ability to fight. American land-based aircraft responded, flying out from the atoll to attack the Japanese carriers. Many of these early American attacks were poorly coordinated and suffered heavy losses. Torpedo planes and bombers pressed in against intense fighter cover and anti-aircraft fire, often with little effect. Yet even when they failed to score hits, they created pressure. They forced Japanese combat air patrols to react, kept Nagumo's force busy, and contributed to confusion aboard the Japanese carriers. Nagumo now faced one of the battle's central dilemmas. His first strike against Midway reported that another attack was needed. That meant rearming planes for land targets. But then Japanese scouts began detecting American naval forces nearby, raising the threat of enemy carriers. Carrier warfare demanded fast decisions because aircraft had to be armed with the right weapons: bombs for land targets, torpedoes, or armor-piercing bombs for ships. Changing those loads took time and filled hangar decks with fuel, weapons, and aircraft in vulnerable states of preparation. Nagumo's carriers were caught between two missions: finishing Midway or striking the American fleet. The delay and confusion created a deadly opening. The American carrier attacks did not arrive in one perfectly coordinated wave. In fact, many units became separated while searching the vast ocean for the Japanese fleet. Torpedo squadrons attacked at low altitude and paid a terrible price. They flew slow aircraft against fast Japanese fighters, and many crews were shot down before they could release their weapons effectively. Their sacrifice has often been remembered because, even though they achieved little direct damage, their attacks pulled Japanese fighters down towards sea level and disrupted the defensive pattern around the carriers. Above them, American dive bombers were still searching. When they finally arrived, the Japanese carriers were dangerously exposed. In a few decisive minutes, the battle turned. American dive bombers from the carrier Enterprise in Yorktown found Nagumo's force at a catastrophic moment. Japanese aircraft were being refueled and rearmed, and carrier decks were crowded with planes and ordnance. Dive bombers plunged from high altitude and struck Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu. The bombs did not need to sink the ships instantly. They ignited fuel lines, aircraft, bombs, and torpedoes, creating uncontrollable fires and explosions throughout the carriers. 3 of Japan's frontline fleet carriers were effectively destroyed in a single devastating sequence. What had begun as a Japanese offensive suddenly became a disaster. One Japanese carrier, Hiryu, remained operational for a time, and its air groups struck back with skill and determination. Japanese aircraft located and attacked the American carrier Yorktown, damaging her heavily. Yorktown's crew fought fires, restored power, and worked desperately to keep the ship alive. To Japanese pilots, she even appeared at one point to be a different carrier because her crew had brought her back into action so quickly after the first attack. But Hiryu could not change the overall situation alone. American aircraft later found and bombed Hiryu as well, leaving all 4 Japanese fleet carriers present at Midway doomed. The losses were staggering. Japan lost Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, along with the heavy cruiser Mikuma and roughly 3,000 men. Among the dead were many trained aviators and maintenance specialists whose value far exceeded simple numbers on a casualty list. The United States lost the carrier Yorktown and the destroyer Hammond, which was sunk while assisting Yorktown, but Enterprise and Hornet survived. In material terms, the carrier losses alone were a severe blow to Japan. In human terms, the loss of experienced aircrew was even more damaging. Japan could build more planes, but replacing elite carrier pilots and cohesive air groups would prove far harder. Midway is often called a turning point because it ended Japan's ability to advance with the same momentum it had enjoyed since Pearl Harbor. The battle did not end the Pacific War, and it did not make American victory immediate or easy. Brutal campaigns still lay ahead, including Guadalcanal and the Long Island hopping drive across the Pacific. But after Midway, Japan had lost the initiative in a critical way. Its carrier force had been cut down, while American shipyards, factories, and training programs were beginning to accelerate. The strategic balance was changing from Japanese expansion to an increasingly powerful American counteroffensive. The Battle of Midway also revealed the new nature of naval warfare. For centuries, great sea battles had often been decided by ships seeing each other and exchanging gunfire. At Midway, the opposing fleet's carriers fought largely beyond visual range, using aircraft as their striking arm. Intelligence, reconnaissance, timing, and deck operations mattered as much as armor and guns. Historians have described Midway as one of the most decisive and consequential naval engagements in history because it combined tactical shock with strategic impact. A Japanese plan meant to trap the U.S. Pacific Fleet became an American ambush. In the vastness of the Pacific, a tiny atoll became the place where the direction of the war changed. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.